Hello friends, a very special edition of Monkey TV for you today, and especially those of you who are bourbon enthusiasts or have a bourbon enthusiast in your life. And for those of you who are looking for a one-of-a-kind gift for, say, an upcoming birthday gift or, of course, Christmas on the horizon, listen up. We are super psyched to tell you about our latest project. Super proud to announce that we have joined forces with one of the top selling bourbon brands in the entire world and our #1 selling bourbon here at Sauce Monkey Spirits, Woodford Reserve. Over last weekend, we took part in what they call a personal barrel selection with Woodford, and soon we will have here at the store a bottle of Woodford Reserve for you that you will not be able to find anywhere else in the world. That's not hyperbole, that's just a straight fact. And not only will you have a chance to purchase this juice that we selected personally, but just in time for the holidays, we'll be offering free engraving on this bottle for a personal message. So what a tremendous gift this is going to make for somebody. Very personal, and we're really psyched about this thing, and so I know you folks will be as well. But demand is going to be super high on this thing because folks have already been asking to buy one. So we're going to ask folks to come in and pre-purchase this bottle. There's only going to be 180 of these, so if you want your chance of doing that, you're going to have to purchase it in advance, and it's going to take Woodford about 6 or 7 weeks to get this here to the store, but it'll certainly be here in time for the holidays. And we also have a treat for you in the rest of this video, especially you folks who love bourbon and are interested in how a bourbon selection takes place. Now, due to the COVID, we didn't have a chance to go to the Woodford distillery and do our tasting there. So what transpired was Woodford sent us 3 samples, 3 different barrel samples for us to test and to taste. And these were selected personally by Woodford Master Distiller Chris Morris. Now, in the bourbon world, I'll equate it to sports. Chris Morris is kind of like the Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells, Joe Paterno, you name it. He is considered one of the top distillers of the entire world. So it was really cool to sit down and talk to Chris, even though it was via Zoom or Google or whatever the hell it was. And also joining me in the tasting, it wasn't just me, because I'm learning more and more about bourbons, but certainly don't have all the expertise by any stretch of the imagination. So joining us for the tasting was Ken Bernardo, founder of the Charlotte Bourbon Society, considered one of the top bourbon tasters in all the Charlotte area. Also, Jim Lanaham from Breakthrough Beverage. He is their whiskey ambassador. Jim has been tasting bourbons and selling bourbons for a very long time, so he knows what is good juice. Also joining us from Breakthrough Beverage, one of our best distributors, we had David Schumacher as well as Jeff Crocker, both with a combined over 40 years of selling bourbon. So we had a great panel, and we came up with a wonderful barrel of whiskey. And unlike some brands, Woodford does not do a single barrel selection, so our bottle will be a blend of 2 of the 3 bourbons, 2 of the 3 barrels that we selected. And so all I can tell you is what we ended up with was a super smooth, buttery, cherry, fruity flavored bourbon that everybody will like. Your hardcore bourbons and your entry-level bourbon folks are going to love it. So remember, get down to the store and get your bottle. We're only going to have 180 total of these, and they're going to fly out of here. Now, the video that's following is a little lengthy, but I think it'll be really interesting for you guys to, or gals, to follow along and see how we came up with this. Due to the Zoom, you're only going to see Chris Morris, but you'll hear us also in the background. If you don't have time to get to watch the video, then get down here, purchase your bottle ASAP, and it's going to be a great gift and a great barrel, a great bottle of booze. So come on down. Sauce Monkey Spirits, we're right behind the Harris Teeter in the Springfield Town Center. So like Jim Lanaham said, he's been tasting bourbons for a long, long time. He said this is one super little bottle of whiskey. Sit back, enjoy the video, get down here to the Sauce Monkey and pre-buy this super Sauce Monkey Woodford Reserve.
Wish I could see you all, but we can't, Chuck, and that's all right. Thanks, Jim. And of course, I could see Jeff earlier. So these things happen, obviously, but at least we can do the personal selection without visuals. I've got the same 3 samples in front of me that you all have. And of course, we're going to conduct a personal selection and get the result is a 2-barrel batch that you will say is what I want for the sauce monkey. Now, this is not an anti-single barrel selection, Chuck, because of course we're part of Brown-Forman, as you well know. We have the granddaddy of all single barrel programs, the brand that got it started with the Jack Daniel's single barrel program back in the 90s. We've got the Old Forester single barrel program. We've got Casa Herradura. We do single barrels, but this is different. It's a batching program. And the reason is because every bottle of Woodford Reserve that's ever left our distillery has been batched, has been created from a batch. And in other words, there's no single barrel of Woodford Reserve that tastes like Woodford Reserve. Each barrel is a part or an ingredient in Woodford Reserve. And to get our core product, I'm batching 100 barrels together. 100 barrels that come from at least 10 different production dates. And those production dates will be stored in different warehouses and in different locations within warehouses. So I'm taking this myriad flavor personalities and combining them to make the complex balanced Woodford Reserve. That same process goes for double oaked, for rye, for malt, for wheat. That's how we put together the Woodford Reserve family. So we're going to do the smallest batches possible, which are 2-barrel batches. Now, when you put 2 unique barrels together, and because they are at 50-50 in terms of weight in the batch, you're going to create a flavor profile that is absolutely unique. It can never taste like Woodford Reserve, and no single barrel combination, no 2-barrel batch can ever taste like any other. So we're going to end up with 3 unique 2-barrel combinations that, of course, will lead to your selection. But ironically, to do that, we're going to taste 3 single barrels. Now, why are we tasting the 3 single barrels? To find out what flavors they bring to the batches they go into. And each barrel will be in 2 of the 3 batches that we're going to put together. So the first round of tasting, Chuck, is mainly just for fun, and it's illustrative. It's to tell us what flavors we'll be working with. And we have 2 production dates across these 3 barrels. So this is a microcosm of a larger batching process. Our first barrel happens to be the oldest, and it's from September the 19th, 2014. And you see that the proof is 120.3 proof. Our entry proof is 110 proof. So this is a barrel from Warehouse C, first floor. First floor is always the coolest floor, so our proof increase in the angel share process is usually the least. Now, our next 2 barrels, 2 and 3, are from the same date of production. They are both from March the 19th, 2015, obviously a few months later than our first barrel. And these 2 barrels were from the upper floor of Warehouse C. So both the same production date, March 19th, 2015. Barrel 2 is 133.4 proof, and barrel 3 is 133.9. Again, the upper floor of Warehouse C is always the hottest floor of the building, and therefore the angel share takes a greater degree of water out of those barrels, and thus our proof rises dramatically. So got a good range of flavor potential to go into your batch. We've got a first floor barrel, and we've got upper floor barrels. So again, this is a miniature of the bigger picture that we do on a daily basis. So obviously these are high proof, even 120.3, that's high proof. So as we taste these 3 barrels, just keep that in mind. There's a lot of alcohol in these, but when we do our batches and when we bottle Sauce Monkey, we do bottle at 90.4, so that the alcohol heat will be removed. So don't be dissuaded by the alcohol across these 3 first sips. Okay? Any questions so far?
No, good to go. Good to go, Chris. And again, remember, we live in South Carolina, so you got to go slow with us.
Oh, come on. Come on, you guys.
Well, I'm actually a transplanted Yankee, so I'm actually the smartest guy in South Carolina.
That's good.
Just kidding. I love all my customers.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't get a chance at the top as we were trying to get going. We really appreciate the time, and for a new and young store like ours, this is very exciting for us. And so we appreciate your time.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We love, ironically, COVID bringing this virtual tasting to life for us has enabled me to meet more good people like yourselves than I ever would have in normal course of a day. So this has been really fun for us as well to get to meet you all, learn something about your store, and build relationships, which I think are obviously important and hopefully will go on for many years. I hope this is not our first and only personal selection together. And of course, we look forward to the day when you can visit us at the distillery and we can do this in person. But until then, these virtual meetings have been really beneficial, I think.
Okay, and not to be ignorant, where are we in the process right now?
Okay, we're going to taste. We're going to taste sample 1. All right.
Okay.
And let's nose it first. And for 120 proof, this is really, really nice and soft. Now, lower barrels, traditionally, Chuck, for Woodford Reserve, will have a general flavor profile. Doesn't mean each one is that way, but they're, in general, they're going to be more grain forward. The barrel, the oak hasn't really taken over because of the cooler temperature. And this has a lot of the rye spice in it. A lot of rye spice. And it's a crisp, clean, like a little hint of mint and a little hint of, well, definitely the rye grain itself. I could smell that fresh rye, but I'm getting that little greenness, mint, and that little methyl note, which is so fun to have. It's not big and sweet. It's not big and fruity. And here comes the nut notes. And I got a good pop of pecan, and that's from our malt character, just a nice pecan note. So this is in general like a first floor barrel is, but of course it's unique because it's unique. You don't get that good rye lead first usually. Okay, well, let's give it a taste. Let's give this a taste. Remember, guys, we're at 120 proof. Really nice flavor. Obviously, we get the warmth of the alcohol. I'm getting that pecan, sort of pecan brown sugar, like a very, very light praline note. And there is that little touch of mint in here, just a touch of mint, which I think is wonderful. All right, well, let's move upstairs. We're going to walk up our 4 flights of stairs in our 1890 warehouse. I would say when we're there, duck, because they didn't make big stairwells in 1890s. Usually people bump their heads on the beams overhead. And let's pick up sample number 2, barrel number 2 from 2015, 133.4 proof. So we've gone up dramatically in proof. And the proof increase of 13 proof points is statistically valid for a flavor difference. In other words, if it tastes different, you can say, yeah, the proof is different, and it matters. But also, it's in a different barrel than the first barrel. It's a different production date. So there's a number of factors why these barrels will taste different from each other. And I mean 1 and 2. It's going to be a different story between barrels 2 and 3. But this nose is dramatically different. And you start finding some hints of cherry and berry fruit, fruitier. bit more sweet notes. Not oak, not big in wood. I don't note the grain that we noted in the first barrel. Oh yeah, that beautiful fruit character. And a little hint of spice. And a gorgeous dollop of honey. I've just got the most beautiful honey note. I love that honey note, just beautiful. So let's taste, guys. Remember, 133 proof, so we're really going up here. Wow. Taste that fruit. Lots of red fruit, berry fruit, cherry, that sweet character.
Light heat, buddy.
And I just had to pull a little piece of wood out of my mouth because of the barrel sampling. Beautiful. Night and day. You would not believe, if you didn't know it, that those two barrels were Woodford Reserve. So different. So of course you can see how batching these barrels together allows us to build the big consistent flavor profile of our core product. Now, barrels 2 and 3, are they different? They were filled on the same day with the same spirit. Now, why does the spirit differ from day to day? Most people don't think about this because they don't need to. Barrel 1 was made in September of that year, near the end of the year, obviously. And guess what? Near the end of the prior year's grain harvest storage. So that barrel was made using some of the last grain from the 2013 harvest, because you harvest only once and the grain lasts you a year, correct? So as grain is stored, it does change because it's a natural product and it changes. So using end of year grain will result in some different flavor profiles. September is also warm, a warm month, and the heat impacts how fermentation runs, and it also impacts how the distillation in the pot stills run and how we condense, because our cooling water in all of our cooling apparatus is relatively warm in the summer because our cooling tower cannot get really cool. Now, barrel 2 and barrel 3, obviously in this case, are made from very fresh grain. It's more recently harvested. This is grain from the 2014 season. It hasn't been stored very long. It's made in March where the temperatures are cooler. So again, our equipment runs differently. Our fermentation proceeds differently. So even though it's the same distillery and the same recipe and the same yeast and everything's the same, everything's different at the same time. And now we got different barrels, different physical barrels. So if barrel 3 is different than barrel 2, there's one reason: the wood itself. The barrel is physically different than the 2 barrel because the spirit itself is the same. And they are different. Nose them. Barrel 3 doesn't have that big fruit character. It's more sweet aromatics, maple syrup, hints of butterscotch. Beautiful sweet aromatic. And why? It's the barrel. The barrels make the difference. And the proof is virtually identical. Half a proof point has no bearing on the flavor profile. It's physically impossible. So by all means, all standards, these barrels should be unique, except for the wood and the barrel itself. So let's taste barrel 3. And even though it was sweet on the nose, here's some good spice. Good spice. Because it's warmer and more prickly than the second barrel, even though the proof is virtually the same. Because spice is spice. It tells your palate it's spice. Beautiful. Okay. You all tell the differences?
Oh, yeah.
Great. Now, think about this. From a point, there's nothing wrong with these 3 barrels. Each one is great because it has no defects. We wouldn't have sent them out if they had defects, but I just want to reassure you, there's no negative notes such as rubber, burnt rubber, sulfur, mildew, mold. What's wrong with these? They're just different. And of course, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You may or may not like certain flavor compounds, but in terms of technical flavor presentation, these 3 barrels are all good to go, which is great. Now we're going to put them together in the smallest batches possible. And Jim, Chuck, have you already done that?
Yeah, they're already blended and ready to go, Chris.
Okay, great. So we got A, B, and C, our 3 batches. And it's very simple. A is barrels 1 and 2 combined. B, barrels 1 and 3. And C, of course, are barrels 2 and 3. Now, here's where the fun really begins. And I call this Woodford math, Woodford Reserve math, because we've all been taught that 1 + 1 = 2. So 1 + 1 = 2 means both barrels show up when it takes all the flavors from the 2 barrels. And sometimes that happens. But sometimes in Woodford math, 1 + 1 = 1. We put 2 barrels together and only the flavors of 1 barrel show up. And the other barrel just has faded away. It gives us volume, but it hasn't given us any flavor. 1 + 1 = 1. And sometimes in Woodford Reserve math, 1 + 1 = 3. We put the 2 barrels together and new flavors show up that neither barrel presented by itself. And you're like, what happened here? Where'd these flavors come from? It just happens. And it's all of sensory threshold. Every one of these flavors we've tasted, gentlemen, is a flavor compound. A flavor compound that has a sensory threshold. In other words, it must be present in parts per million, in some cases parts per billion. It must have a certain amount or the human sense organs can't pick it up. Even the best nose in the world can't nose it if it's below the required sensory threshold. This is science. So when we put these compounds together via the barrels, sometimes we dilute the sensory threshold of a flavor compound and it disappears. Or sometimes they're both strong enough and present enough that we taste them both. And sometimes barrels had flavors just below threshold that it both had them. And when you combine them, it's pushed over and now we get that flavor present. So the flavors were there, we just didn't know it. So that's what's happening. And that's why these 2 barrel combos are so fun for me. And I hope they're going to be fun for you to find out what the barrels have given us. So this is purely an act of nature, what we're going to taste. Okay. Now, batch A are barrels 1 and 2. And I'm just going to sort of, we'll simplify. Barrel 1 was pecan and a hint of spice, rye. So pecan and rye. And barrel 2 was the big fruit bomb, the red fruit, the cherry fruit, the berry fruit, and honey, a bit of honey. So let's find out what we've got. Nose first.
There. Got good. That's a damn thing.
Now,
That cherry is still.
I hear the cherry, and I'm getting a little faint bit of that praline, that little bit of nutty note. So maybe this is a 1 + 1 = 2. Certainly on the nose, they're coming together and they're very balanced. Neither one is really pushing the other out of the way. So we got some cherry, definite. We got the praline, definite. We don't get the mint. Not getting the big honey note, not on the nose. But now we're going to taste because Oftentimes there'll be more flavor on the palate than we're picking up on the nose. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Tons of flavor. Man, that nose was deceptive. It was so laid back. And that sip is incredible. The honey, the nut notes. Beautiful. Man, that's good.
That's what
I think we're off to a good start.
for sure.
Absolutely. That was delicious.
Isn't that is, I could say, stop, let's stop right now. Boy, that's good. But we got more options. More options.
I took the afternoon off, and so we're going to sit here and drink for a while longer, brother. And hey, also, Chris, before we go, I wanted to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Ken Bernardo, who's joined us. He is known as basically the bourbon aficionado in Charlotte, started the Charlotte Bourbon Society. So I wanted you to say hello to him. Hey, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, Chris.
How
Huh?
old is your society?
So we started up just shy of 3 years ago, and it was
Good.
all the result of a bourbon dinner that I put on each year to raise money for the Heart Association, and now we're up to over 2,000 members.
Wow. Man, that's awesome. That's great.
And,
Congratulations.
and I've also got my neighbor from across the street, Jimmy Schill, who owns Southern Hardware, but he just comes over and drinks my booze, and so he's here helping us too. And also, just to let you guys know, and I want this on record, Breakthrough Distributing are huge supporters of you guys. They've been a huge factor in my early success. I've got Shu and Jeff Crocker here, and of course Jim helping us out. So want you guys in Woodford to know how much they believe in you guys.
Well, that's great. Thanks, everyone, and hello again. And everybody's getting to have a sip, I hope.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that's good. Good. Okay. Well, let's find out what our 1-3 combo. So this batch has the 1 barrel in it, just like batch A did. So we got that praline, hint of rye spice, and now we're adding the big sweet aromatic barrel. That was real maple syrup, butterscotch on the nose, but it had a little spice at the end. So now we got 2 spice notes coming together, the rye and the spice. And I think the spice in that 3 barrel was more wood spice than grain spice. So let's find out. On paper, this should be really spicy. Again, we know that may or may not happen. So let's nose. It's not really spicy on the nose. Again, a nice soft entry. Now I've lost more of the 1 barrel than it was in A. The 3 barrels, maple and butterscotch notes, etc., are a little more pronounced here. Yeah, and what's these first 2 batches have just come together so well. They're like one solid note on the nose. Now let's taste. Here comes the spice. Yes. Wonderful degree of sweetness as well. The sweet aromatics are nice. We have some more spice. Maybe it's a good thing we didn't stop at A, because now we got 2 good ones here. Very different though. Even though they share the 1 barrel in common, they're very different. Go back and nose A. Soft. B's a little sharper. Yes, beautiful. Now, our 3rd batch, C, obviously does not have the 1 barrel in it any longer. It's the 2 and 3 barrel combination. And that is fruit and honey, and sweet spice. So, according to paper, this could be really more complex. It certainly would have a lot of sweet character in it if what we see on paper is in reality. And there's the fruit. Got a lot of that fruit character still there. So the 2-barrel, which did not show really, really super fruity in A, is really showing up now. The 3-barrel, excuse me, and B. A lot of fruit, little spice, little wood. Let's taste. That fruit builds and comes in. It's that cherry and berry. Cherry. Not real spicy at all. Not super sweet. But just enough to have a nice impact. Wow. Now, sometimes when you put 2 barrels together, a negative note might show up. Again, it was below threshold and it pops. Nothing's happened here, guys. No negative characteristics have presented themselves. Everything's good to go from a technical standpoint. I find all 3 batches really good. Great, neat, great to sip.
I like the mouthfeel on this one.
Yeah. Now, Chuck, this is when it becomes personal. It's your selection. You're in charge. I've done my bit now. I've ruled no foul. Nothing wrong with it. You got to make it.
Jim just told me not to chuck it up, but he didn't use the word chuck.
I don't think there's a problem doing that with these.
There's not a wrong answer here. That's the good
No.
That's
news.
right.
Well, obviously what we want to do is, make a selection that everybody's going to like.
Yeah.
And I, just to let you know, I'm relatively new to the liquor game, even though I've been drinking liquor for 56 years. But no, in all seriousness, that's why I brought these guys in. I bring Ken in and my neighbor Jim because they're, I appreciate everybody else's opinion. And I like, if you don't mind for a second, Chris, just go around the room myself and kind of get everybody's opinion.
That is a good plan. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyday content.
Yeah. But it's Jim, you were loving that from the minute.
Yeah, I think A is one of the coolest little whiskeys I've ever had. It really is. No, I think 3 or C is a bigger mouthful of whiskey. Yeah. But A to me was just a fun drink of whiskey.
You were going to say people would love if you went 3. That's what I think. Everyday customer would like it. That's what I would say. If you were going to say this song, if everyone said,
Speak up. We want to hear you.
Yeah.
So
And I heard some of the discussion, and again, there's no right or wrong, but I've been doing this program since I started it in 2003, and there's different schools of thought. You want to have something very different than other bourbons, different than Woodford Reserve, obviously. That's an option, and of course, you talk about it, it's really different. Or you might want to be a little closer in to the standard. To meet people's normal expectations. It's less risky. I don't think there's risk with any of these, but again, if we were on a scale of bourbon, single barrel, or bourbon, A would be less common, different, and B gets closer, C gets closer as well. So again, those are just things to consider, the customer, and I think one thing that's important, Chuck, is the ability of your staff to talk about it, Jim and your team, if you make some flyers or posters.
Sure.
This personal selection is different. I had barrels. They were this way and this way and this. Anyway, communication is important.
I think number 1 is the most different from Woodford. I just think
She's thinking on this cherry nuts.
it's just playful. It's just fun. But 3 is just great whiskey as well. I mean, they're all good.
And it's not going to come at this high proof.
No, we'll proof it down. We'll proof it down before we're done. But, so yours is already proofed down, isn't it, Chris?
Yes. Yeah. So my comments were on approximately a 90 proof
Okay.
combo.
So what do you think, Chuck?
Yeah, I think it's a, from a personal standpoint, is I understand obviously where Ken's coming from, and I call them the hardcores, but I'm looking for this to be more of a want to be a Christmas gift also, but it's also, I even think for the hardcores, pardon the expression, I think once they learn that this is something unique and it's pretty damn smooth. And
Yeah.
So you brought up a good point. Number 3 starting to approach a double oak type of mouthfeel and lusciousness to it. Yeah.
And to your point, that's coming into the holiday. This might be something for
I'm with you.
buy a Christmas gift for those people who aren't big whiskey drinkers and they want something incredible, and introduce them to a whiskey. So whatever that could be.
yeah, and I don't want to feel like I'm taking the safe way out. I'm going with what I felt initially. Between all 3 are dynamite. But I mean,
All right.
I don't mind taking a vote, but God damn it, my vote means everything. Well, Karen's signing the check. She's on a conference call upstairs. No votes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So
I tell you what, if you no, you go ahead and make your choice.
no. I appreciate everybody's input, but 1 is my initial instinct, and that's what we're going to go with. Or
All
A, I
right.
should say. Yeah.
Congratulations. Cheers, everyone. I'm raising a glass.
Chris.
Well, thank you, Chris. We really appreciate your time, and so this will do us both very well.
Oh, that's great. And congratulations. That's quite a following. Wonderful. Well,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris.
have a good weekend. And I'm glad you've taken the day off, because I've got a 4 o'clock meeting scheduled. So I gotta go to
Well,
work.
I didn't take the damn day off. I had 2 deliveries, 2 trucks, and then 2 bars to deliver to. So thank you, buddy. We know
Thanks,
you're
Chris.
busy.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.